Óscar, muchísimas gracias.
No, gracias a usted. Let's see what happened right now because I don't have my papers anymore. What am I going to do?
You're in New Mexico. No, but those are very, very powerful words. And I know that one of the things that you don't like to do is you don't like to talk about yourself. But I thought that before we talk about migrants and the situation with immigration from Central America today under the Trump administration, as you say, let's put it in context. I'd like to hear more about you. How did you decide you wanted to become a journalist? You say you come from a region that doesn't know peace, that's been at war for decades. What was your upbringing like? I mean, what led you into journalism?
Well, I have to be honest. I don't know exactly because every time I answer that question, I tell a different story. So it cannot be true. It cannot be true. All the stories cannot be true. So I don't remember the exact moment, but I can tell you one thing. I'm sure that my father had a lot to see. My mother worked during years. She created an organization who worked with the more poor children in El Salvador, abandoned children, sons of gang members, of migrants, children of broken families. And my father is a sociologist. Is that, am I saying correct?
Yeah.
Sociólogo. So they show us since kids that more than happy we have to be useful. I have a little daughter right now, Maria. She's 4 years old. And now that I'm a father, for me it's difficult to answer that. I want to see my daughter happy. But the world needs useful people, not just happy people. So I think that my parents put that on our minds from childs, and we try to respect that race. So I don't know the exact moment. My older brother Carlos is a
You were
journalist
17,
too.
no, when you started?
Yeah, I started in a radio, and we broke the radio in 6 months. Broke, okay? we just had to put fire on the radio to get worse. My brother Carlos, my older brother, is a journalist. He worked with me in the project of coverage of violence. And my young brother Juan, he's anthropologo, but he have a lot of journalistic piece published. So it cannot be a casualidad. I mean, the three brothers walk the same path. So something happened with my parents. And I cannot tell a story because I'm gonna tell another story, and you're gonna hear me in internet telling other story and another.
But you never thought about being a singer or a soccer player, or it was.
I tried to be a soccer player, but in El Salvador we had a very bad team, so and I would have won something. No. I played football when I was a kid, but no. I know that I love write. I don't love write too much right now, because I think that at the beginning I loved when I have to write, and all that I care about was the peace and the perfection of what I was writing. Right now there is a lot of another topics on my mind. For example, is this gonna be useful? Is this gonna generate something? I don't know.
You come from a country like Mexico, and you talked about it in your speech, 99% impunity. Number of people who crimes unsolved. And that means everybody. I mean, the population in general, including journalists.
Yeah.
You kill a journalist, no one really cares if life goes on and so forth. You talk about your 4-year-old daughter, you have panic buttons, you have walls, etc. And I know you probably hate this question because you're asked all the time, but why do you do this? If something happens to you, not much may happen. They won't solve the case.
Well, let me see if I find the words on my mind to say that, because for me that's very important. The answer to that question is very important. I don't like journalism anymore. I have to say that. I don't believe in that beautiful sentence of Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who said this is the best job in the world. No, I see terrible things. I don't like all the time do what I do, but I think that what I do is useful. I think that journalism can change things. That's why I do journalism. After say that, I have to recognize that journalists change things at a very slow rhythm, like the wave against the rock. That's the job of a journalist. Transform in a powerful wave, because you have to attack the rock all the time. The rock wanna be rock. The rock do not wanna change. And you are water, and you have to trespass the rock. So you have to do it one and again and again. As Martín Caparrós say, when Martín Caparrós, he's an Argentine great journalist. He wrote a book called El Hambre, how I might say that in English?
The Hunger.
The Hunger. I recommend you that book. En serio, se lo recomiendo. And he said, yeah, be a journalist is like be a football player of a team who never win. But you are on the field. I can tell you how never put a goal to the other team. Do not play. But if you are on the field, maybe one day you're going to score a goal. And that's what I think about journalists. Maybe someday.
It must be difficult. I mean, you spent 3 years writing The Beast, chronicling some of the most inhumane things that we see as journalists. I remember writing Midnight in Mexico and covering the drug violence, and it took a big personal toll. I mean, I was listening to Juan Gabriel way too many times. I was drinking too much tequila. Yeah. What kind of personal toll has it taken on you?
I'm more a rum guy.
A rum guy.
But no, but you have to answer that question too, okay? It's not fair, not just me. You're going to answer that question too.
This is your night.
No, we're going to answer, both of us going to answer that question. I think that, believe me, this is not a heroic thing that I say because I want to convince that journalists can be good people. It's impossible to walk this path. There's no way back. I mean, of course, you're gonna have repercussions. I lost a lot of people in my life because my job. I lost couples.
Couples, your partners, your wives.
I lost another things that I used to do. I cannot remember. Without journalism, I cannot remember what I like, for example. What I like to do in my free time. I mean, it have to be consequences. But you know what? ¿Qué me mantiene a mí? How am I say that?
What keeps you sane or what keeps you going?
Keep me going. When you see the courage of some of your sources. Because I'm going to put you an example. In 2015, after coverage a police massacre in El Salvador, the police killed 8 people, including a young girl of 16 years old with just one bullet on his mouth. And they say that was a shooting. It was not a shooting. We published that, and our newspaper sent us out of the country with our families because they knew that it's going to be a repercussion. And it happened. Police, people went to our houses to look for us and that kind of thing. So I was, in that time, I went to Nicaragua with my family to a house with a pool, to a very beautiful house. You know where was Consuelo Hernandez? Consuelo Hernandez is the woman who heard how police officer killed his son. She was the only witness of the massacre. And she, when I was in Nicaragua, she remains in his poor house. So, if this work demand on you, ruin your life, do it or leave it. But it's the only decision, do it or leave it, because that people just ask you one thing. Tell the story and tell it well.
How do you protect your sources? I mean, what's the best way to protect them?
Well, there is a lot of method that we use. For example, with Consuelo, we moved her from her house after threats. We talked and we have some arrangement with some international organization who protect people. And in some moments, we help people to leave the country. That's what we used to do. In the more extreme cases, we.
Have you in your reporting and what you do, have you found the line that you don't cross, the line that represents survival and death? How do you mark that line? Where do you mark that line?
I don't know if I mark that line. I'm a very pessimistic guy, but.
We should not have water, we should have ram and tequila. No?
Yeah. I think that we can say smarter things if we. No, I don't know, but I know that I'm pessimistic, but that's have not to see just with journalism. I used to be a very pessimistic young boy. So I say, no, we're going to lose. That's all. No, I don't know, but of course, death is. See, so much death mark your life, mark your view of the world, your version of the world. And for example, make some things uncomfortable. I try sometimes. I live in Barcelona for 9 months, where I went there to work on my first book, The Beast, to write and to editing a little bit for 9 months, and I couldn't. I ended drinking pills, transyllium pills. I cannot live in a peaceful place. I cannot understand a peaceful place. I'm not useful there. I don't know what to do. What am I do? I go and walk on the beach all the day. What am I do there? So of course, the work create you. The work conform who you are, and it's part of yourself, like a human being. Right. I mean, there's a sentence who a lot of colleagues use. You don't work as a journalist like a priest don't work as a priest. You are a journalist. I mean, I don't go to my house and take out my I never wear like this, but and take off my jacket and say, okay, I'm not journalist anymore. If something happened, I'm gonna sleep and forget about it. It's not like that. It's a way of life.
It's an incurable disease.
Well, rum helped.
Any day now, the U.S. government will release the annual apprehensions of undocumented immigrants along the U.S.-Mexico border. It's expected that the numbers will show another decline, including from Central America. What's behind the decline? What's the situation with Central American migration these days?
Okay, I think that, as I said a minute ago, this is a cycle. There's another declines in the recent decades. After the Hold the Line operation, after the Jump Start operation, after the Gatekeeper operation. I think that there is another reason, not just because this is a cycle. Another reason is because your blonde president say a lot of things.
Is that really having an effect back in?
Yeah, that generated, because I think that the community here in United States are waiting to see what really gonna happen. And they say, okay, do not invest that money to pay the coyote right now. Wait a little bit. Let's see if that's true. Let's see if all that fear it's gonna be true or not. Let's see what happens. Wait a little bit. They can wait. They are patient. They know how to live in a violent place. They been patient for a lot of years. So I think that people are like evaluating what is going to happen. But second, and that's true. I published that in an article in my newspaper, El Faro. The first one who get profit because of Trump's speech was the coyotes. The northern coyotes, the Mexican northern coyotes, the only necessary coyote. You can travel Mexico alone. It's very hard. It's the hell. But you can cross Mexico alone, on the top of a train or traveling in buses through little towns. But you cannot cross the border by your own. That's impossible. You're going to die if you do that.
But,
So-
you also have Mexico playing a role, no, in
Yeah,
stopping
yeah.
the.
You are right. There is another situation. After the coyotes, I'm going to talk about Plan Frontera Sur. Yeah, thank you for remembering me that. So the northern coyotes say, okay, because of Trump, we're going to ask for $350,000 right now. Am I saying it correct?
Yeah.
3,500.
$3,500.
$3,500. Before they ask for $1,050,000. So it's more expensive to migrate with a coyote right now.
So the coyotes are profiting from.
Yeah, of course,
President Trump.
they are part of a business, so they're going to take all the opportunities to make more money. So they find in Donald Trump a great opportunity to make more money. And yes, Mexico created like 3 years ago what they call the Plan Frontera Sur, the South Frontier Plan, who is not a plan. It's not a plan, it's not even a paper or a document. It's just a lot of operations to retain more migrants from Central America in the more angosta parte, in la cinturita de México. I don't know how to say that in English.
In the corner of Mexico.
In the corner of Mexico, in el Istmo de Tehuantepec, the more small part of Mexico. So I said to Alfredo this afternoon, I cannot understand Mexico government. Why, if United States treat Mexico like that, building a wall, deport a lot of people, and deport again, and with that violent political speech, why Mexico continue help United States to stop us? I cannot understand that. That like syndrome of Estocolmo. I mean, what happened? You like your kidnapper? What?
I think a lot of Mexicans are asking the same question.
I cannot understand that because, I'm talking not about the people of the United States. I'm talking about the government of the United States. Let me do that distinction.
But are the Central Americans, are they staying in Guatemala, in Honduras, in El Salvador, or are they in Mexico working without documents? I mean, what's happening there?
I think that most of the people are waiting before
In their countries?
in their countries, but there is a lot of much more people who is asking for asylum in Mexico, in Belize, in Costa Rica. We published recently a special about that, about refugees. And for example, in Mexico, in 2015 was like 5,000 solicitudes of asylum. This year, gonna be 20,000 from Central Americans. So, and that remember to us, again, remember the war. That numbers, it's similar to the numbers of the war. So, yeah, we have a different war, but we are in war. We are living a war situation. Of course, you can go to El Salvador and drink margaritas in La Zona Rosa or drink margaritas in Playa El Tunco. It's very beautiful. But there's no the places where El Salvadorians live. The huge population never went to that places. So El Salvador is not just a very violent country. It's a very unfair country, a very desigual, very unequal country. And you said that before. You said that thing before. And we had another huge problem, the impunity. the message of El Salvador to the killers is you can do it. Anything gonna happen. The message to the people who lost their children during the war is forget about it. Forget and forgive the people who do it. But who do it? Forget about it. That's the message of that country for that people. So that fooled you of rage, that fooled you of anger, that fooled you of sadness.
I know one of the things that I've seen as a reporter lately in Mexico is we're seeing a lot of Central Americans in places like Querétaro, Aguascalientes, San Luis Potosí, people who often masquerade as Mexicans. And you also see in the Mexican government bringing in more Central Americans because they can't keep up with demand. How do you see that developing in the future? I mean, do you see a kind of a migration program like what the United States once had with Mexico, where Central Americans will be coming in legally to other countries?
No, I think that things gonna remain that it is for years. I think that Mexicans and Central Americans gonna jump that wall.
So a wall's not gonna make a difference?
Yeah, no, and gonna get into United States. Maybe they gonna pay more. Maybe they gonna die more. But they gonna get in. They are doing it for years. We are doing it for years. My uncle's doing it in the 80s, for example. No, anything gonna change. But you know why? Because migrants are perfect victims. They don't vote. They don't care to the political parties. They don't denounce the situation. For example, in Mexico, ask to a migrant to denounce an authority, it's a nonsense. They're never gonna go to a police station to denounce anything. It's like go to the enemy army to ask for water. And they live hidden.
Hidden.
Hidden, sorry. Are the perfect victims. I mean, lives, hidden lives. I don't know how to say that. So I don't believe that government, just because suddenly gonna change and gonna start to be humanistic. I don't think so. I mean, what gonna change to transform migrants in a powerful group of people? I think that there is a huge way before that.
You talked, and I read The Beast. It came out 2013, no?
2010.
2010.
Yeah.
It was an incredible, the English version. It was incredible, the kind of detail that you provided, the kinds of risks people take. What was it like for you as a reporter? I mean, what was that journey like? Was it similar to the migrants themselves?
I try to travel with them mostly I can. Yeah, for example, I travel on the top of the train 8 times. Or I cross. I get into United States undocumented one time.
You did?
Nobody.
You shouldn't say this.
No, okay. Was a joke. Was a joke. No, I didn't, but I have a friend who did it. And who crossed the river. That friend crossed the river just to understand how Phil crossed the river. And after that, my friend went back to Mexico, in Nuevo Laredo. I can tell you because I was watching. But
how much did your friend pay? I mean, how did your friend cross the river? With the coyote or by himself?
With another migrant.
With another migrant.
With an Honduran migrant, swimming.
And how long was your friend on the U.S. side before going back to Mexico?
No, we went no way.
No, not we.
No, not we. Like 10 minutes. It's just the experience of feel what a migrant feel crossing the river. So I just been there. I mean, it's a huge river. It's very terrible experience. But I try to do that kind of thing not because I want to be a hero or something like that, but because I need to understand can tell the story. I mean, if you're gonna talk about the rain, you need to be under the rain sometimes. You don't live under the rain, but you need that a little bit of water on your head. So I try to do it, but not all the time. For example, as you know about that. Maybe you're the one who must know about that, about Losetas. I started the book in 2007, so when I try to describe how Losetas, not just like a group of men, but as a system of control of a town. So I went to a town and I do, more regular coverage. I talk with sources, I talk with corrupt policemen, I talk with members of Losetas. More common coverage. So I try to do everything to understand a very complex reality. And I travel with a photographer. I can be a migrant. I'm from Central America, but Edu Ponce, Tony Arnau, they're from Barcelona. So it was very difficult for them. They published a book who call En el Camino. It's a book of photographies who was named the best book of 2015 by Picture of the Year. It's a great book of more than 2,000 photographs. I recommend you that look for that book. And there is a documentary who called Maria in Nobody's Land with subtitles, who is directed by Marcela Zamora. And it's a documentary just about the women experience on the road, just about what happened with with undocumented women in Mexico. It's a heartbreaking documentary.
Oscar, we come to the end, but I really have to ask you, is there a story that sticks out, a story that doesn't let you sleep at night? For example, when I was covering at the height of the violence, Villa Salvarca, the massacre in Ciudad Juarez, there were many nights that I would just wake up, think about it. Is there one story that just really has stayed with you?
There is a lot of stories. But, for example, there is a lot of stories that ruin my days. But, for example, the situation of Consuelo Hernandez right now, one of the most recently. You know that Consuelo hear how those police of a special unit kill his 20-year son. They hear how he's asked for time to explain who he is. And she was brave, and she was to a trial, and she said what he saw and what she heard. And a judge say, okay, it's true, somebody killed your son wasn't shooting, but the prosecutor cannot build a good case, so sorry, but everybody gonna go to the streets again. So, in some way, I think that maybe I put that women in that situation. Maybe if I never went to this little town to ask questions, she never crossed all that hell to have to go to a trial. I don't know, so there is a lot of stories that.
Or maybe you were just being useful.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that at the end of most of the journalistic pieces, there's no too much answers. There's no too much answers. It's very difficult. We live in a very how am I say, cínico. Vivimos en un tiempo muy cínico.
We live in a very cynical time.
In a very cynical time. And day by day, it's more difficult to move the people. Day by day, it's more difficult to get some of that goals. I don't know. It's my impression, but I think that but my answer is we have to do better journalism. We have to transform in better journalism, more ways against the rock, or at least that's the only way that I understand to live. I cannot do anything else, but when I say anything, it's anything. I cannot cook, nothing. So I'm gonna do that to the end. I mean, I choose that path, and I'm going to do that tomorrow.
Ha sido un placer.
No, el placer ha
It's
sido
been a
mío.
real honor.
Te lo
Oscar.
agradezco
Thank you
mucho.
very much.
Te lo agradezco, en serio.
Thank you.
Gracias. Muchas gracias.